Okay, just doing a little basic maintenance for you on the Insight NG. Here's my Dust White and Gloss Lime Insight that I have. First thing you're going to do, I've already done this a little bit, but you're going to want to press down on this button right here, and then you will pull the engine out, set the inside aside. It's really simple engine in here. There's only a few parts you really need to worry about. Not too many dynamic O-rings either, which is nice. You have your bolt head, which you want to oil with Tri-Flow only. Other oils can swell the O-rings and cause you some issues, which I've run into before. So you want to make sure you only use Tri-Flow. You can pick it up at your hardware store or order online, however. And then you have the ram inside of here, which you'll see there's a spring inside of mine. I got the spring mod for it. You might look into it. I haven't really got it tested yet. I'll let you know more this weekend. And then you have the rear can and back cap. Back cap you really shouldn't have to worry about. There's a screw right here. If it comes loose, you can put some blue Loctite on it, keep it tight on there. Really shouldn't have to mess with that too much. There's a couple O-rings in here that you can grease. But moving into the maintenance, you will unscrew the two halves. Be very careful. There is an O-ring on here, right here. You want to make sure you do not lose this, and make sure you put a decent amount of grease on here. You want to, as far as grease goes, I would highly recommend using Monkey Poo. It's probably the best lube that you can use for the Insight. It's a little bit thicker and it sticks to the ram better, and the Insight likes to go through a lot of grease, so this is better for it. It'll stay on there longer. But you still want to do maintenance after each day of play. Clean it down, grease it back up, and you should be good to go. You might also want a microfiber to wipe off the old grease, and some Q-tips to get down in the can back here. There's some O-rings down in there. As far as the ram goes, there is a Allen screw on the back. It'll be a bigger one on the brass ram. So you go ahead and take that apart. These two halves will just come off. This is threaded on there. And there is your bolt head. And then you'll pull out the ram. You don't really need to worry about this O-ring too much. Just kind of keeps the bolt head in line so it doesn't get out of shape. And then you have two O-rings right here on the sail and a bumper O-ring right there. You want to make sure you put a decent amount of grease on here. And also, another important part of the Insight is, I'm not actually going to take it out because I have the spring in there right now, but there is the brass shutoff valve, and there's two O-rings in here, and if you can, try and get like Q-tip or like your pinky and get some grease down in there, and then just kind of work the ram through there. I'll go ahead and show you that now, how I do it. Just get a little bit, I mean, not too much, it'll work its way through, but just try and get it down in there, and then you can use the ram to work its way in there, and just kind of slide it back and forth, and it should get the shutoff nice and greased. Then you will also want to put a generous amount of grease back here on these O-rings, and I mean, not too much, but you definitely want enough on there for a good day of play. Like I said, the Monkey Poo does stay on there a little bit better, so you shouldn't have to worry about it, at least until the end of the day. I always take my Insight apart after each day of play, wipe off the old grease, and apply new grease on there just to keep it running. If you take good care of your stuff, it'll take good care of you. So, pretty simple there. If you have any excess grease on your finger from doing this, that's alright, because you still need to grease this back here, which I'll go ahead and use a Q-tip to get the grease that's in there already out. Go ahead and use both sides, just get it nice and clean. Alright, that's pretty good. And then you can just wipe this extra grease down in there. Maybe get a little bit more just to make sure it's good. It's actually easier if you use your pinky to get down in there. And then let's just put a little bit more on here so I can work it in there. And these Insights, they're really nice guns. They shoot really well. They're really air efficient. I mean, they require a little bit more maintenance than, say a poppet valve, but it is a spool valve gun, so they do require a little bit more care. I mean, nothing too crazy, and these Insights are really simple. So, taking this O-ring, you might try and get a little bit of grease on this part without the O-ring on there, get it underneath it so it just seals well. It helps a lot better if you get the grease underneath the O-ring instead of just on top of it. So I usually just kind of run my finger over it and try and get some grease on there, help it seal better. Like so. Alright, and get this O-ring back on there. And go ahead and tighten up the ram onto the bolt head. Now you don't want to do it too tight. You can actually over tighten it, and if you do, you can potentially bend your ram. I've seen it before. A friend at the local field, he over tightened his ram and ended up actually bending it and had to get a new one from Bob. Not too big of a deal, but something you don't want to really do if you can avoid it. I mean, just finger tight's good enough. So go ahead and get these two halves put back together, and you do want to make sure that these two halves are screwed on pretty tight, so that way the can does not come loose and give you any issues. So, and then I usually just run my finger over these O-rings back here, grease this up. Doesn't take too much really on these O-rings, they just hold the seal on it, so you don't really have to worry about them too much. Just make sure you fill in the cracks in between the O-ring and the space that's milled in there, like so. And then there's one O-ring up here, and just throw a little bit of grease on that too. That's just another body O-ring. Get that greased up, and you're pretty much good to go. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm pretty knowledgeable about the Insight. I've owned mine since last May, the one that you have now, and they really haven't given me any issues. I mean, just do basic maintenance after a day of play. The reg you really don't even have to grease for 20 to 40 cases. They're really pretty simple. So there is no LPR in the Insight, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't need a pressure tester for it. I mean, you can buy one if you really want to know where your pressures are at, if you're trying to do some tuning or something like that. I mean, it's really not a big deal. The programming on it's really nice. You hold the trigger down and press the power button. It goes into your settings. And also, if you hold it down before you let go of it, it will tell you where the software is at. The one that I sold you is on 5.19 BD, which is good. You either want that or the 5.20A, which I have on this one. There's really not too much difference between the two. They both work fine. There was some initial issues with the software on the Insight when it first was released, but they got that all taken care of with the updates. You have your rate of fire, or your firing mode first, then your rate of fire, game timer, debounce settings, mechanical debounce, just make sure your trigger doesn't run away, because the Insight does have a very fast rearward bolt travel, so that can since it moves so far back, if you have your trigger set too close, or if it moves so fast back, if you have your trigger set too close, it can actually activate the micro switch and keep doing it and cause you to have trigger bounce, which you don't want if you're playing a tournament or anything. Trigger filter, you don't really need to mess with. That's at 6. Dwell, I have this on 8 right now, which they recommend for the spring mod, but stock dwell is 12. I would leave it there. If not, raise it up if you need to, and if it's cold. The 68 caliber, I think it's kind of interesting that he offered a 50 caliber mode on here, but I guess there was plans at one point to release a 50 caliber mod for the Marker G6R, and it just never happened, but he left it on there in case he changed his mind in the future. Bolt delay, that is important on the Insight, especially towards the end of the loader. The bolt moves so fast that towards the end of the loader, if there's no pressure on the stack, you can actually have a ball go down in there and it'll register it, but it'll bounce back up and the bolt would fire and chop it. Well, with the bounce detection software that he added on the 5.19 BD, it allows a little bit extra time for the eyes to register and make sure that that ball is in place before you're allowed to fire, so you don't have any chops. You can either choose between right and left hand text, factory reset, bolt bounce detection delay. That's what I'm actually talking about. And then back to your firing mode. So really pretty simple gun. I swear by them. I only shoot Bob Long anymore. Really haven't found a reason to go to anyone else. So if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks.